Hi, how you doing? I'm Gabby. Welcome to another episode of the Happier Life Project, brought to you by free mental health and wellness app, My Possible Self, in partnership with the Priory Healthcare. Between the 12th and the 18th of June this year, the world acknowledges Men's Health Week. This annual event is organised by the Men's Health Forum and aims to raise awareness of preventable health problems that disproportionately affect men. Then on Sunday the 18th of June, we of course celebrate Father's Day, a day to honour all dads. And then the following day, Monday the 19th of June, it's International Fathers' Mental Health Day, a day made to support fathers who may be struggling with mental health issues, which was co-created by today's guest, paternal postpartum depression survivor Mark Williams, who knows all too well how much dads can struggle. Mark is a mental health speaker, author and international campaigner, passionately advocating for better treatment for parental mental health. Mum and dad, dad and dad, mum and mum. If you're raising a child, you and your health matter. Mark also founded the #HowAreYouDad campaign to make sure all parents are having support for the whole family. But for now, with the spotlight being on men and their mental health, today we are zooming in on fathers and their mental well-being to acknowledge, raise awareness, and learn about the areas they might be struggling in silence with and how we might help. How does postnatal depression in fathers manifest? Why does it manifest? Have you stopped to think about the impact of birth trauma for the dad who had to witness their loved one going through something so traumatic they might have lost their partner and their child? Fathers can develop perinatal mental health problems, either as a result of the spouse or partner's illness or independently. But all too often, we can get so wrapped up in the baby and the mother without remembering to ask one simple question. How are you, Dad? So let's help tip the scale more evenly. Ready to support a healthier, happier dad? Let's get started. Hello, Mark Williams. Welcome to the Happier Life Project.
Hey, Abby, are you okay?
I'm good, thank you. I'm glad you've got such a big smile on your face today.
Oh,
It's making me smile. Right, okay. Well, why are we talking to you today? Well, it's I suppose when the spotlight is really on men and fathers, we've got Men's Mental Health Week, which is between the 12th and the 18th of June. So this podcast will be live, right in the middle of that. Then we've got Father's Day, of course, on Sunday, the 18th of June. And then the following day marks International Fathers' Mental Health Day, and you co-founded this day. Would I be right in saying?
Yeah, that's right. Well, the idea came for myself in 2016. So I thought about, obviously, UK, and then I got a friend out in California, Dr. Daniel Singley, who does a lot of work with fathers. And we joined forces then in the following year to make it a proper international day to get... So we got doctors in Australia, obviously America, Ireland, Europe now coming on, and also Africa as well. So it's
wow.
A global day we wanted to make it as well.
Yeah, culturally, the perspectives must be vastly different.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you know, with fathers in the UK, the pressures are totally different than a couple of generations ago, So there's mostly and mum's a breadwinner now in some families. Thankfully, they're in Parliament now as well. So my work is all about getting a holistic approach, really. When you support all parents for their mental health, it actually has far better outcomes for the whole family and a child's development. So
yeah.
I'm known for fathers, but people are not aware that I'm actually an ambassador for two mothers charities, Mothers Matter, Mothers for Mothers, and a campaign for the Mother Baby Unit in Wales, which we opened 7 years ago. So, my work is obviously, of course, I'm a father, but I'm actually all about parents, really. All parents should deserve that same sort of support.
And I knew this had happened. I'm already pivoting from my notes, but just what you were saying about different men's perspectives from all over the world, it's making me wonder if there's a common denominator, and that's that fathers don't talk enough about their struggles. Am I right in assuming that?
Um, in fact, you'd be surprised. The groups we run, you can't stop the fathers from talking. I think, uh, honestly, even when we did on 2 days ago online, and I had 10 dads, and the key is once you get one dad open up, the other dad will follow up, and you put them in a safe place. And gosh, the fathers will talk all day. But I think we just got to give them that space, and they do talk. Men do talk. It's a big myth, but I think is barriers why they don't talk because they're worried about their partners. They're worried about their partners' mental health get affected. Also, the workplace. If this disclose they got a problem with their mental health, it's gonna maybe affect their careers. So it's just really normalizing the conversation, say, and breaking down the myths then. Because certainly for me as a father, I suffered in silence for years, and I was working in mental health then as well, and that was some of the key factors that stopped me from getting help until I had a breakdown where I had no choice then.
I definitely did want to go back to that sort of catalyst for you, really diving deep into this work. But I guess I missed when I was doing my research that you were already working in mental health.
Yeah, well, how it came about after what happened, obviously Michelle and myself, I wasn't the same person going into sales and marketing. I couldn't take the pressures anymore. So I decided to go back to a youth club where I still sort of volunteering, not as much as I used to. My mother's behind the counter. My wife's
Right.
actually there tonight, running the club. So basically, what happened, I went back to get out that career, and then unfortunately, there was a lot of young suicides in Magen, media storm going back a couple of years ago, where the public well, our community was actually were treated really badly by the press, misinformation, and then we were put on mental health courses and suicide assist courses. And like I did in sales, I've always had this positive psychology. I love psychology from my sales background, but now I was really interested in mental health. I started working different projects, for instance, like people with learning difficulties, support living, that sort of area. And then I went into forensic on the forensic wards and secure units. And it was at that time, actually, around that time, I had a breakdown.
Oh, goodness me. I have to share that it was actually a family member of mine that spoke to me, a male, and he opened up, and he doesn't do very often, but he was saying that he listened to the podcast, and that actually gave him the kind of motivate, inspiration. Maybe he was like, "Hey, have you thought about doing an episode on?" And his was, and I'd never even thought about it from the perspective of the trauma that a father goes through. It was the birth of his first child. He works in the force. He works on crime scenes. He's seen a lot in his time, but for him, seeing his partner in that much distress, yeah, I kind of sat on it for a while, and then we found you, and Father's Day is coming up, and I guess I'm bringing this up now because it's similar-ish to
Yeah,
what happened with
absolutely.
you, right? In
Yeah,
terms of the catalyst for your real struggles in this area.
yeah, definitely. It starts in childhood. Obviously, I got a wonderful family and friends and stuff. But unfortunately, school wasn't for me. In the 70s, 80s. I mean, I'm 50 next. You'd have a clip across a year and be talked to in a certain way, which my parents never talked to me. But it wasn't until I was 40 after the breakdown I was actually diagnosed with ADHD, and the ADHD neurodiversity is very it can be a high risk. Obviously, as you know, high risk of suicide as well because the impulsivity, and the other factors that comes with it. So, I already had something undiagnosed, like an invisible enemy, which I've managed all my life. And luckily for me, the youth club helped me and went to sport, and I became a British champion. So I question authority, and I know you got ODD, which is anti-authoritative and stuff. But where I look at it is, if I'm not always right, but if I think I'm right, I'll say I'm right now. And put my head above the parrot pit. And so when I say that is, when you got a teacher saying you're not good enough, you never do anything in your life, and they never get a job, and I had a window cleaning job and a window paper round job, and I just become a British champion. I start questioning authority then, so at 15, but unfortunately, at 15, 16 then, the Ibiza scene started kicking in, rave scene, and for 6 years I went down a different path, drugs, alcohol, and it's been a coping skill all my life. Alcohol had been, And it goes down for my own father. If we had a problem, let's go to the pub, let's go have a pint. My father's a miner, my grandfather's a miners, uncles, and I'm the first generation not actually to go underground. So it was a very much, I say, a tough community we got. A really great community, but it's very much, get on with it. Come on, it's look up the hard men, all that stuff, which has changed massively.
I wonder where that even came from, that men don't talk about things like that.
Yeah,
I wonder where it stemmed from, because it's just sort of always been there, hasn't it? Until kind of recently, where people like yourselves are breaking through and giving guys this kind of safe space, I think, to talk, and doesn't make you any less manly, air quote or whatever. In fact, I think a lot of females now would say it makes you more manly because you feel strong and yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so I got this from stats on your website. 1 in 3 fathers worry about their own mental health, and 1 in 10 fathers suffer from postnatal depression. So what do you think some of the big causes are here? What's going on?
Well, when you look at that research, the NCT did the research or study in 2015, and I was part of it. I remember going on Good Morning Britain, and I'm a wife, and the stigma back then, obviously, it was a lot worse than I first started. Gosh, but it's really, when you look at it, 1 in 10. Now that's been 1 in 10 for years. It was 1 in 10 for years for mums for years before. Only recent times in the last 10 years is anything for 1 in 3, 1 in 4. But when we start screening and assessing dads and also asking dads about their mental health, because the study we just did only last year, me and a good friend Scott Mayer, that 80% of fathers wasn't asked about their mental health at one time. Only the group I ran on 2 days ago, only one father out of the whole group was asked. This is 2023. And NICE guidelines, CG 192 NICE guidelines, excellent pathway care, they haven't got nothing on fathers. And so when you look at the biggest killer in men under 45 being suicide, and the research I found that it's actually one of the highest risk of suicide is being a father, up to 47 times more risk, especially if you've got ADHD, bipolar, and then you become a dad. It's only about 5% higher than average, and yet we're not engaging with that. So a lot of fathers or men will die by suicide in the postnatal period, or like myself, end up in services afterwards because they hit crisis point at various different times in their lives as well.
Goodness. And like you, I would imagine a lot of men struggle in silence and suffer in silence because, again, we're talking more traditionally, it's the focus is on mother's carrying the baby, and then when the baby's born, everybody's cooing over the baby, and the dad can sometimes be left a bit sort of sidelined.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, November, it just did a couple of things on fathers. 1 in 5 British fathers lost close connections with their best friends. Loneliness, isolation. There's other factors that comes into it, but also when it comes to postnatal depression, it's just trying to get people's heads around it. It's depression in the postnatal period. So I give an example, or the perinatal period, which is the antenatal period. So you can actually have antenatal anxiety and depression, and that can lead into a postnatal depression, of course. And so when you look at all the signs and symptoms of mums with postnatal depression, guilt, not good enough, bonding with the baby, thoughts of suicide, guilt, not good enough, there's not one actually fathers can't experience. So when people say, when I first started, it's hormonal. Okay, well, actually, there's biological risk factors when it comes to fathers. Testosterone actually lowers, estrogen and cortisol levels, and actually oxytocin. And when oxytocin releases, obviously, there's more motion. That's the time we have to encourage that skin to skin, because that will actually help dad and the baby with the brain development, which is so important in that 1,001 critical days, which is conception to the first 2 years.
Wow. There was 4 podcast episodes that you released. Was it about a year ago under the name How Are You, Dad?
That's it.
Yeah. I learned so much. I really did.
The recent research actually as well is that it's just come out of Canada now actually, and it says 1 in 4, well, 23% of fathers actually suffer from antenatal anxiety and depression postnatal. So 23%. So when men do start talking and we start screening or at least ask father, how are you, dad? We know it's going to be, well, I know it's on par with mums at least. It does take longer for the bonding actually with the father as well. A lot of men will mask those emotions as well in the labour ward and all sorts of things. Or I had a wonderful experience, all this love. But when I ask them months later, they say, Mark, no, society tells us I have to say that. I
Yeah.
guilt, they feel guilt. But explain it will come. It will come. It does come. If obviously more interaction and you have with the dad and babies.
Yeah. It was because of you and Dr. Andy Mayers that the NHS are screening and supporting new dads with their mental health now, and that hadn't happened before. So that's a huge change, right? And again, this is like from about a year ago when I was listening. So how's it been since
Yeah,
then?
it's a great start. I'll be honest, in 2018-19, we had a phone call. Obviously, we had to keep quiet for 5 days, and which was hard. But when we look at it, fathers will only be screened, assessed, and supported if mum is in special services. So if in many cases is again, I speak to more mums and dads sometimes, and many times mum is fine or being supported. Dad is now struggling, and or the mum is in third sector, not in specialist services, and so that means the dad won't get that support or screening assessment. So it's only if mums are in specialist services that NHS England will actually screen assess dads, which is a great start.
Right.
But we still have a long way, Gabby. We got to support and screen every dad and every parent, same gender parents, everyone.
Yeah. So for anybody that is listening right now who is a dad, can you request to be screened if you are struggling? Like if mum is okay, like you said, and it doesn't necessarily, tick the initial boxes.
I always encourage the father, if he can, speak to health visitor and midwife. The only problem, like you said, I think the confidence in health visitors. I train health visitors, midwives mostly. My audience is 99% women. And in conferences, you can imagine. So the thing what we found is that if the confidence of asking dad in the first place is there's always this myth that their father's always in work. There's always ways to get to dad. You've got emails, you've got various communication, but also I feel that once we've got proper services in place and proper pathways, then if the father does disclose something, then we've got a pathway for that support in place where, health visitors and midwives are so overstretched at the moment. We need more health visitors and midwives. It's absolutely, criminal on them actually, because a lot of them are suffering from compassion fatigue because they're so burnt out as well. So it is a big other factors, but I feel that the father can actually go to the GP. What you'll find with GPs, as we know, they are general practitioners, but it's the Edinburgh postnatal depression scale you can do, and it's a screening tool. And if he feels that these can't bond or there's feel guilt as a father, I always say, look, make sure you speak to somebody in specialist perinatal mental health teams, so the GP can always have a look at that, because as you know, GPs will never know everything, especially about mental health.
Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes for me, it's more scary speaking to the receptionist trying to make an appointment because they are the gatekeepers, aren't they? And it's like, this is just my experience. I almost feel, and sometimes I think I'm, maybe too easily triggered, but I'm almost like getting ready for a fight with the receptionist if I need to see my GP because I'm thinking they're going to do everything to try and fob me off.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky, Gabby. We're from a community where, yeah, we know our community is like, yeah, they say, oh, Mark,
Yeah,
okay, yeah, I'll sort it out for you.
come on down.
I'm pretty lucky, like, that sense. But
Nice, yeah.
but going back to your question as well, is what you mentioned about post depression, is a big crossover. Like your friend, just mentioned PTSD. So, we know that PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder, but it's actually an anxiety disorder, either witnessing or experiencing a life-threatening event. And like your friend, I worked in secure units. I witnessed horrific things in my life, in my workplace. Nothing worse thinking your wife and baby is going to die in front of you. For me and a lot of fathers, I speak, they feel that helplessness and you can't process what just went on. And that's a lot of people have birth trauma, but without that support, it can lead to PTSD.
Yeah. You touched upon, there's more like equal rights for women and women working and all this stuff. But then we've got alpha mums now, haven't we? And is this hard for men? Sometimes they might feel a little bit like because the mother carried the baby in terms of the decision making, and in terms of, I think sometimes mums might just, there's this just do it I'll just do it, I'll just take care of everything kind of thing, and not to the help as well of the mother's own health, but I think sometimes mums just take it on. And I guess I'm using the word alpha mum because I can think of a few in my friendship group who are great mums, but I sometimes think, how much is dad doing? And then knowing that I was going to speak to you, it's making me wonder, maybe dad wants to do more, but maybe doesn't feel
Oh,
like
yeah,
they might be overstepping.
it's a good question, that is. And we've seen in COVID, COVID's changed a lot of fathers. They've been there more, obviously what happened. Unfortunately, there's been issues with scans, and dads unable to go scans, left in car parks for days, waiting for the birth, and just in case they missed it. So there's been a lot of struggles that I didn't go as a new dad. But we got to educate mums about the science behind the bond and attachment, that a secure attachment with all parents has a far better outcome. So, all the research on fathers has always been about absent fathers and different things over the years. Okay, why is the father absent? What's the reason behind the behavior? And especially around postnatal depression, when you look at paternal OCD, I give an example, dads get intrusive thoughts like mums. Dads will want to check a baby. Dad will do everything a mum's experience when it comes to perinatal midlife. Of course, the thoughts and feelings dads can experience. But if we don't engage dad, it comes up only a lot actually. Unintentionally, mum might say, "Oh, give me the baby. You're too slow." Okay, dad will go off, toddle off downstairs, and I always say to him, it doesn't matter. It takes 5-10 minutes. What happens when dad's engaged with that baby? Obviously, that again is that bond and attachment as well. It helps that being in tune with the baby, singing the baby, but actually it helps dad's mental health because it gives a massive shift of dopamine and endorphins because now he's getting something out of that experience as well.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, there's some research that says actually in Cambridge University that fathers with severe postnatal depression, there was links between depression in teenage daughters as well. So if you've got a dad who's depressed, he's less likely to sing, read, dance, and play, and he's less likely to follow good health guidelines like keeping the baby safe because his mind's racing constantly as well. So there's a range of reasons why, and then the relationship breaks down because dad's got intrusive thoughts, or he's told that he's not good enough as a dad. Well, and his personality change. And these are signs to look out for: personality change, avoiding situations, drinking more, feelings of anger. Well, we know about postpartum rage with mums, of course, but of course dads have our rage as well, especially I did. And I'm so laid back. I remember punching the sofa past my hand 4 months in. My wife was severely unwell, where she was in crisis teams. She was only mum on the ward. Mums were people with bipolar schizophrenia. Well, I had to give up work, look after my wife. I was self-employed, no money coming in, mortgage to pay. I didn't get this overwhelming feeling that I was expecting because I was just more concerned about my wife and, of course, the baby. And then, obviously, you got the other things as a father, trying to man up and be the breadwinner. Well, I couldn't be the breadwinner because I couldn't even get out the house because I had to support my wife, who should have had another baby unit. So there was a range of reasons why I was depressed in that postnatal period. And we don't even talk about the lack of sleep that comes with that as well, where, severe lack of sleep can cause psychosis, can't it? Severe lack of sleep. So it's a range. But what I found over the years, I I can't remember. I spoke to thousands of dads in different countries as well. One of the themes that comes up a lot is, unfortunately, the relationship sadly ends. And then what you'll
Yeah.
find, and this goes for mothers, because I've worked with a mother who was really unwell, and the father was trying to get custody and did get custody. But what you'll find, because the dad presents unwell, and then it interlinks with family law, and you can't see the child, and there's parental alienation, and all sorts of things going on. So it does manifest in loads of different areas, where if we had an early prevention in the antenatal period, and obviously the postnatal period, the cost, the economic cost, but most importantly, the cost and better outcomes when you look at Scandinavia countries, how they got it right. I just come back from Denmark and Sweden. Absolutely incredible what they do out there. So shared parental leave, 90% of Finland take up shared parental leave. They know about the outcomes, the best for that child's development.
There's an old sort of say, I don't know if it's a saying or maybe like a concept about this notion that once you become a father, you become a real man, or you become a man. Have you heard that one? I
Yeah,
remember like
yeah. Oh,
one of my brothers was a bit of a tearaway, and I remember when his partner fell pregnant, and my mum being like, "Oh, this is going to change him," and actually it didn't. Not really. Yeah, I'm just sort of curious if you've come across this or spoken to any dads that. I don't know, like it's like a fairy godmother's going to come and wave a wand once the kid is born, and then you suddenly a man and you weren't before. It's these
I
kind of
know.
old wives' tales, though, that can do more harm than good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's generation. It's if I listen to my grandmother, I we give my son baby sham to go sleep, like So that's what she used to do to me, like or put them in the bottom of the garden and stuff. So
Okay.
we have moved a long way from that, but
Yeah.
it's still, and I think it's a good time now.
Baby shower.
Yeah, baby sham. You probably remember baby sham, and so yeah. So we've come a long way, thankfully. But I think what we're trying to get the message, and certainly now for our next generation, when my son may become a father, is talking about it. And that's something my wife works in mental health matters Wales, and she's been there 12 years. I've been working in mental health, and that's something that I didn't do with my dad until he had psychosis actually after a water infection and lack of calcium and high fever. And he understood it more about anyone could struggle with mental health or have psychosis as well. So it's something that we've talked about recently in the last couple of years, me and my father. And certainly my son was probably more educated at 15 than I was at 30 years of age around mental health. So, and so, yeah, so we are coming a long way, thankfully, to all the other people who raise awareness. But certainly when I first started in 2010, 11, when I remember going on TV and radio stations and, how can men get postnatal? Man up, get on with it. You're taking the attention away from mum. My work has never been able to take the attention away from mum. I'm saying if you don't look after dad as well, dad can support mum better if he's well, and also he can impact on mum's mental health. And obviously,
Yeah.
it interlinks with adverse childhood experiences as well over the years with fathers. And when it comes to, I'm all about quality, and as we mentioned, I don't see it. It's funny. It's something I've been thinking about lately. I've never seen it as look at quality and stuff like that. I look at it as a person. I don't care who that person is. I just look at the person, how kind he is, or what that person brings. I've never seen the person's color or gender or anything. I never have. I struggle with that to think, well, I just see the person I'm seeing, like. And that's the thing when I look at that with parents, I see the person as a parent, and that parent needs support. So, doing a project with two gay dads now, and you can imagine the stigma around the LGBT plus Q community as well. So it's all about parents. It's all about the person. That's what I look at. So
I'm glad you raised the point as well about, when it's two dads, because I would imagine that maybe some of the struggles are similar, but then some might be different because they've got an extra battle to face in, unfortunately, to society and, again,
and healthcare.
culturally and that kind of thing, and healthcare. And yeah.
Yeah, what I've been hearing of Michael and stuff like that is, yeah, absolutely horrendous, to be honest with you. But it's gonna, that's something we want to improve. But certainly when it comes to fathers as well, when I first started, gosh, we weren't talking about mental health like we are now. I think the last 6 years, I'd say we've really come on. It's building and building. But certainly when when I first started, the boosts that we used to have and stuff like that, suicide. The research tells us it is high risk. Up
Yeah.
to up to 50% of dads can get depressed looking after their partners with post depression. So my argument has always been, okay, if it's only the dad who's struggling, we're up to 50%, and mums are going to get affected. Because when I was unwell and I had my breakdown, and I was physically fit, Gabby, at the time, I was doing a lot of kickboxing just when it's tournament. It was impacting my physical health and everything, and that's something we got to look out for as well. My wife's depression came back, and now she was so unwell looking after me because I lost my grandfather and she cared for my grandfather, dementia and stuff. And my mother had cancer at the time. We're in 6 weeks each other, and she's fine now. Everything I've dealt with in my
Gosh.
life came to head. So it actually impacted on my wife's mental health looking after me, and that's vice versa what I see with mums and dads.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do you think sometimes partners expect the other one to be a mind reader as well? They might ask for something, but they really want something else, and they expect the partner to know that.
Yeah, communication is a huge thing. We only teach that during COVID, and it was fascinating because me and a midwife, I think we spoke to about 750 parents over the space of COVID online, and the one exercise we found was that mums would rather know what's going on with dad rather than dad think, I give an example. This comes up quite often. Dad doesn't want sex with his partner. Mum's overthinking, is it me, anything I've done, body image, just a new baby. And because they're going to communicate, when you look at the root of the cause, dad doesn't want another baby because he just witnessed his wife go for a horrific birth. He's suffering himself with mental health, and he doesn't want his wife to be pregnant again, But mum's overthinking, is it me? Does he love me anymore? And, is he seeing anyone else? So, communication is really important for parents, really, to understand and overthinking. I've overthought a lot of things over the years. But I use CBT and mindfulness and different coping skills now massively as well.
Could you suggest a simple way to get a man in your life talking? We've got a lot of ladies. We're trying to push the scales more towards men to the app. We've got a lot of stuff on men's mental health, but we're still quite female heavy. So
that's great. Yeah. So I do consultancy for Tommy Tippy, and so there's obviously I've just done questions for mums actually to ask me. So that's his 10 things. I've only literally just sent it off today. So it's things like basically I expect they ask me questions like what is postnatal depression, what's birth trauma, those sorts of things. But also, it's basically side by side. I find that a lot of men can talk better sometimes. Certainly, it was the first time I really opened to another father side by side in the gym. And the listening skills, if mum's just listening to this as well, is your partner's personality changed around this time, postnatal time or the antenatal time? These could maybe signs to look out for, but it's listening. And I think sometimes it's getting that communication together is important. And dads got a range of things like mums. What about social services? They worry about they may have factors in the previous relationships, as well as we haven't even talked today about miscarriages. And also dads on the neonatal wards. I didn't experience that, but I know a lot of friends who've never been asked around that time. And also, domestic violence, when you think, we know there's high rates of domestic violence in women, massively, as we know. But people are not aware that, look at the Mankind website, it's something like 700,000 male domestic violence victims every year, But then the health visitor will ask mum about domestic violence and tell dad to go to the room, but doesn't ask dad himself if he's experiencing. And you'll find that there is more anger, more domestic. I think it has been more domestic violence during pregnancy at one stage. I think it's still high risk now. But when you look at, there's boundaries why it's not giving dad information. I think we've got to look at it, like you said, gender equality. I see it as we've got to ask everyone. And it gets to me sometimes as well. When men say about the biggest killer men under 45 being suicide, okay, we know excellence is so important. I know it is. But what about the 25% of women who die by suicide? And when you look at the Embrace report, there's actually high risk of suicide in new mums as well. So, we've got to open up a conversation for everyone. Is suicide in mums as well as men, I should say, women as well as men? And it's domestic violence in men as well as women, but it's higher rates, as you know, Gabby, as well. Otherwise, the conversation goes underground, and men don't feel they can talk about it because they don't know any other men either going for domestic violence. I give an example as well, and it's more stigma comes across then as well. So we've got to have a conversation in schools. I think it starts in schools. We've got to have a conversation about anything like postnatal depression. It's a good topic to talk about, actually. Postnatal depression. Postnatal depression can happen to anyone. Foster parents, it can happen to a new baby coming along is a life-changing experience for a lot of people.
Going back to the PTSD, I think about not just the birth trauma, because we have talked about that, but then if a child becomes poorly, like really, really poorly, or is involved in an accident, and I thought about 2 cases in my family where the kid was very young baby and was choking, and it was dads that stepped up or reacted quicker, and mums were there too, but dads jumped to, solve the situation, should we say. But one in particular was really triggered by that and kept for months afterwards, replaying and replaying and replaying the thing of what would have happened if I hadn't have reacted. It was what would have happened if. It
Yeah.
was that fear of like, would anybody else have? And yeah, I guess I'm just sort of wondering, like, what your thoughts are there in terms of like, once you become a dad. I mean, yeah, we've talked very much about the early days, but it's an ongoing thing, isn't
Oh,
it?
ongoing. My son's 19 now, and next,
There's a
and
whole lot of if other issues, I'm
oh,
sure.
and as you know, the brain rewires in after puberty and up to 27. They say up to 25, 27. So it's an ongoing, and I got an amazing bond with my son. And is anyone out there suffering as well? My wife and myself have suffered, of course. My son, oh gosh, I would say it's my son, but we go out together, we go football matches together. He's got his own friends. I've coached half when with football when I was a football coach, mine, but you know, oh, he's like my best mate, like as well as
Oh
he's
wow.
so we play darts together. We do a lot. Go to Manchester next week together because I'm doing some work with Best Beginnings up there and different things. So if there's anyone out there worried about if you're struggling, how it's going to affect your baby, etc. Like I said, gosh, my life is so different now, and I'm not grateful for what I went through, but I won't be speaking to you today, and
Yeah.
the materials things and all that don't bother me anymore. It's what we're doing. But going back to the question, I think, like I said, fathers in generations, I'm going back to my grandmother who was in the kitchen, unfortunately, and my grandfather was down the pit, food on the table, that sort of mindset. But fathers, given the permission, they will step up. We know they will step up. Give them space, they will step up. And they are, protector, for various things as well, not just I look at the father's role and my wife's role as, we work together. What I'm good at and what she's good at, and we bring it together as a parent as well. Because I'm not, I'm still making mistakes as a father, and that's something to be okay about and have a conversation later. But Gabby, it's something I want to explain about what you mentioned early on as well, is when it comes to men and maternity services, working wise, because very much, I'm all about, got off the subject a bit. That I'm so glad that women now in Parliament and stuff like that. But when it comes to men in being a health as a midwives, thankfully, there is women now actually do bricklaying and things. I think men should have the opportunity to actually go into health visiting midwives. But also, what I'm afraid of, and I've seen it, is when men do go in those roles, because it's only about 1% or 2%. Unfortunately, they get promoted quicker than women, which is not fair. So I like to see more men go into maternity service, but also stay in those roles as a health visitor, and not use it as maybe a promotion sometimes as well. That's something that's come over the years as well. And I'm meant to give opportunities because, like I said, I speak to 99% of women in my conferences and training, and we'd like to see more men in those services, maybe. But women are, I give an example as well, with men's groups, and I only say what I see. I worked with one lady in Liverpool, and she was amazing within the dad's groups, absolutely amazing, and a lot better than some of the men facilitators. And the idea of the group was really once you get one dad to open up, the other dad will open up. You sit back and they're just chatting and they're talking about it, and then you dip in and out, and that's key how to run a dad's group as well. In my experience, I might be wrong as well.
Great points. Okay, final question. I ask every guest at the end of the episode to set the listeners some homework based on the theme of the episode. So, in this case, what is a simple, actionable step that we can all take when it comes to supporting the dads in our lives that will help us all on our mission to building a happier life?
Yeah, I think if it's a dad who you feel is struggling, sit down with him and talk myself again. It's a TEDx talk, the importance of father's mental health, and you can listen to me on there and have a conversation. How do you think I went? And a lot of fathers who have gone through it may relate to my own story as well, and they may open up as well. And I think mums and grandparents need to be educated as well as fathers about postnatal
Yeah.
depression and birth trauma, especially PTSD, which sometimes needs totally different treatments as well. Like EDMR can be effective for PTSD, certainly for my wife it was as well. So she was diagnosed with severe postnatal depression when she had a breakdown in crisis the second time, and they did the timeline of trauma. The biggest trauma life was the birth experience. PTSD was actually, which I witnessed. as well. So yeah, education is power, as Nelson Mandela said as well. So
Well, you're certainly, flying the flag left, right, and centre. You've written a book as well, which I didn't really get a chance to talk to you about that. Sharing your experience, Daddy Blues. So for more on you, there's the book.
It's Amazon Prime. There's a film on Amazon Prime.
There's the film, yeah.
And I got me and Jane. Well, we've got two books. We've got an academic book on fathers and perinatal mental health, and then we've got the last one together, supporting parents in the perinatal period, with Jessica and Kingsley. That's coming out next year. So if there's anyone listening, guys, as well, I left school no qualifications, 15. And any mums out there suffering who have neurodiversity or anything, honestly, because low self-esteem and other factors can kick in being a parent, I say to them, look, be the best version you can be, and and it's okay not to be okay, as everyone says as well. The idea of the books and all that is basically just to get people to realise that dads can suffer as well, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for today. I really appreciate it, especially when it's probably for you. It's like if you're Santa Claus and December's the busiest time of year.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah,
I know this is like the busiest time of year for you. So thank you for squeezing us in.
If I can give a shout out, like I said, if there's anyone in Bristol or Wales, check out Mothers Matter and Mothers for Mothers as well. So I definitely would, if you can check out, and if there's any dads or anyone suffering, I always signpost them to the Hub of Hope, which is a Chasing a Stigma. It's a database where you can put in your postcode, and it tells what service is actually in your local area as well.
Oh, wow. Okay, we can add that to the show notes too. What's it called again? Have a Hope?
Hub of Hope, Chasing a Stigma. HUB, Hub.
Hub. Okay, got it. Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Gabby, and look after yourself as well.
Thanks again to Mark Williams, and thank you to you for listening to this episode of the Happier Life Project with me, Gabby Sanderson. Now for the important housekeeping. If you are suffering with your mental health, there is a crisis button on the My Possible Self app, which will signpost you to the correct information for immediate expert advice. If you're listening right now on one of the podcast platforms and not on our app, the My Possible Self app is completely free to download, so you don't need to worry about it costing you anything. The views expressed in this podcast are solely those of the interviewer, which is me, and the interviewees. The content of this podcast should not be considered as a substitute for professional or medical advice. The Priory Healthcare are not involved in the production or content of this podcast. Thank you to all those who have left us a review. If you do so have the time, we'd love it if you could give us some feedback, please. And to find and follow us on social media, we are at My Possible Self, and I've been at Radio Gabby. So please do take care, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.